Greetings, everybody. Hey, this is Leviathan here, and today we knew it was coming at the end of June, but they actually didn't wait until the very last day to give it to us. We got the Diablo 4. It feels so weird to say it still. Quarterly update. So I did cover the last one. This is the second one of the year because we're at the end of the second quarter here. I'm keenly aware from my work. I'm not going to vent about that here though. I covered the first one. That'll be in the video description below. It covered like co-op and UI and some other stuff about the monsters and the families and things like that. Some pretty interesting things in there, but I actually really like today's update and the way that they structured it. So it's mainly written by Luis Barriga himself, and he does talk about how the team is now working from home, like, you know, most companies and such are at this point, dealing with COVID as a global pandemic still going on. But he did say that, they're still trucking along with Diablo 4. They feel very fortunate to keep the momentum going strong on development of D4. I wonder, we know that there won't be a BlizzCon at the end of this year. That was confirmed. So I almost wonder if maybe the time that they might spend preparing for that, to have like a demo and such, maybe they get some of that time back so there won't be as much delay that has gone into D4 development. All we can really do is couch speculate, but just a little idle thought I had here at the top. The rest of the blog here kind of goes over this idea of a team playtest. So apparently this is something that they do when they hit certain milestones in the game, when they want to really get a lot of people concentratedly playing a certain, stretch of the game or part of the game, and get a lot of feedback on, multiple things, rather than everyone in their own particular silos looking at, just art or just items or just this, kind of seeing how it all comes together. And I think that's pretty cool. I wish we could do it as a community, but I guess that's kind of what alpha and beta is for, right? And they did mention in here that they're not close to that yet. It's still pre-alpha. Someday we will play though. Again, the demo was so much fun at BlizzCon. But yeah, so this kind of right up here is mainly just talking about what I was mentioning, which is that the team members did some stuff like this previous to BlizzCon 2019 for the demo. Did a little bit of a play test, and they were able to stress test and catch bugs and make improvements. And now for their most recent milestone, they did the same thing with the Dry Steppes region in the game. They looked at all sorts of things in there. It's PvP subzone, dungeons, campaign content, open world elements, items, and there's a cinematic. And there's actually something cool coming up where they talk about how they're going to do the cinematics. And I should also say here too that if you have any comments on this, of course a link to the entire blog post will be in the video description. But I think, again, we're at a very critical time where you can make a lot of noise about what you like or dislike and want to see them doing in terms of moving forward. This is the great time to chime in, because change can happen very quickly. And if you care about something in particular, make sure you voice your opinion, because you never know. You can make a difference in this game's development. So then they just decided to go forward with this playtest, and that's going to be the sort of the layout of the blog, is them going through their playtest. It doesn't represent the entirety of their progress. We wanted to mention that. There are other regions in the game that are underway, but Dry Steppes is a region where they made a concerted push to create a complete and cohesive experience that they can draw observations from. Let us know if you like this approach. Do. I have already told my bud Tiff that I actually really like that they did it this way. I think it makes for a cohesive blog, and then also allows them to touch on a bunch of different aspects within that sort of playtesting storytelling, if you will. I'm a big fan. So then they talk about blocking out, which is a very quick way for them to sort of set environments up and such, as far as I understand it, so that in case there is something that needs to be changed or potentially scrapped, they don't spend a lot of time, or I guess money really, when you want to boil it down, on producing all sorts of crazy assets and stuff only for it to not get used. So call it blocking out or gray boxing, allows them to play areas where the art isn't finished. And then I guess this is a bit of a caveat that some of the screenshots and stuff that you see are not completely finished. So, there's a lot of like, hey, don't judge too harshly because this isn't final product. This isn't exactly what it'll look like. There's a lot of that happening here before he fully dives in. So just be aware that whatever you see, if you really don't like something, I suppose, or you're turned off by a particular image or something, that they're not fully finished for maybe most cases, at least some cases. So, like I was mentioning above, they talk about the storytelling and how they, through the dry steps, experience this. And there's two different ways that they're going about it. One is that for more simple interactions with NPCs, they're going to bring the camera in a little closer. So you know how we always have this isometric view, the very classic and standard view for Diablo games and most RPGs in general. They're going to sort of bring you in a little bit more so you can feel the conversation going on. And you're still able to like view your own character and its armor and everything like that. And they talk about how the camera will have a bit of control with some, or sorry, the characters will have some animations and stuff to deliver the gist of convo. But in more complex convos, they're taking a similar camera approach, but movements and animations are more deliberately handcrafted. So this is going to be like for sort of more exciting things. And they can tell the story in a more intriguing way that keeps us in the world. So it's less of this like cinematic blowout, like take you out and here's a movie that we're playing that doesn't even have your character in it, because you know they can't style your character in every single armor for every single cinematic if they did it that way. And then they mentioned some real-time cutscenes. So this is sort of more of your classic, really high fidelity cutscene that you're used to from older versions of the game. But the idea here is that they're really getting into that movie storytelling, and they're going to do this only for the most important story moments, but you'll actually be able to see your character still, which I know again is something that for people that really enjoy like the immersion and the fantasy, they want to feel like they are the, you know, one of the main protagonists in the story that are really driving things forward. So just never losing that moment of like, oh yeah, it's generic barbarian in this, you know, visual, and then okay, back to me and I'm in this certain armor. It's cool to have that continuity there for those that really care about that sort of level of detail. So I think that's pretty sweet. This is apparently some images here from a cinematic near the end of the dry steps. And apparently they didn't want to spoil too much for us, so it's not everything, but there's something crazy going on here. You can tell they're definitely still going for, you know, the darker, grittier vibes here. Lots of red, lots of darkness. I really like this one. It feels like you're almost in like a bloodstream or something. Lots of blood. Ah, man. All right. So that's kind of how storytelling is going to work in the game. And I think that's cool because I think it means that you'll be able to move quickly through story. If you're a person that like doesn't necessarily care about it, it won't be too disruptive. But at the same time, if you do care, they're making sure to give you certain elements that really can allow you to be brought in and experience it. Dark mood. So next they talk about the open world. And you know, this concept that they've been showing us for D4 is that you'll be able to go into these areas where there's just lots happening and you'll run into other players and things like that, with some like randomly generated content and whatnot. So it seems like we'll be traversing this open world quite a bit. And they say that you can actually concentrate fully just on the story campaign and work through that if you wanted to, but the open world kind of allows for variety. So if you're the type of player, it almost reminds me of Final Fantasy games, right? Like when you finally get your airship, or you finally get whatever the mode of travel is, you can go anywhere, right? Like suddenly you have access to this zone or that zone. It kind of breaks the linearness? I don't know. It breaks that straight line of just like you're on rails. Now you're in a bit more control of, yeah, I'll get back to the story. I kind of want to do some side quests or unlock a secret character or something. It's kind of the option that they're giving us here, it sounds like. With, you know, if you want to blitz the story, you can do that. And they said that, you know, people who did, they did the arc in way less time than the average, or than they had half the average time playing when they were just blitzing story, and then they could do the side content afterward, where some people mixed it in as they were doing the story, went and did, you know, other side zones and such. So this will allow you, again, and I think it really is the theme that we've seen driven through most of these blog posts so far, is this idea of control and the ability to really do what you want at most, if not all times. It seems the players will just be in the driver's seat a lot, and that must be one of the pillars of how D4 is being made, because it seems to pop up in nearly every component of what they talk about. Oh, and one thing that they mentioned here too, which does seem to be the case if they're doing it this way, is that you're going to get the ability to replay the campaign in a more enjoyable way, because, you know, it's not like the exact same things every time when you're going through Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, like previous ARPGs and such. This might even be a little shot at PoE. I don't know. I'm not trying to make anything. I'm just saying, you know, just saying. As someone going through the PoE story right now, I'm just like, my goodness, it never ends. But it is cool that you can, you know, mix it up, get into some other things. Oh boy. In any case, oh, this is really cool here too. This is a heat map of where all the devs went in their playtests, like who entered certain areas more often than not. Because red is like, you know, they really hit this spot quite a bit. Must be a story thing here. This spot too, and you can see kind of like some people go here. Like, it's just expansive. It's pretty big. And they even mentioned that they had mounts in this one too, which is I like mounts, man. I think the mounts are going to be so much fun. I think they mentioned that a little later. So they talk about this new thing that they hadn't mentioned yet, which is called camps. And so there's going to be a bunch of open world activities, crafting events, world PvP, side quests. Most popular open world feature was camps. These are locations of importance that have been overrun by enemies, and once they are cleansed, they turn to friendly outposts with NPCs and a waypoint. There's a backstory to each one. Most of the storytelling is visual, and the quests don't directly send you to them. So it's kind of like a find on your adventure sort of thing. One of the camps was a zone that was in a town afflicted by a curse. It had turned the villagers into piles of salt. PJ Salt's in the chat. Another was a crypt that was haunted by a spirit that possesses the bodies of various undead, jumping from skeleton to skeleton until you defeat it. So there's going to be like these just random events, it seems, that you'll come across. And then you interact with these camps, just, you know, solve the issue, and then it becomes a lucrative place for you to potentially stop by. I wonder how lucrative. That's pretty cool. Just something a little different. So this is one of the examples. The salt-covered ruins of a town. Salty players. And then here we go, mounts. So they mentioned here in the open world section that they got mounts in their playthrough. And they liked how the open world was interacting with it. You could get to your objectives more quickly, but it didn't trivialize travel or combat. And itemization for mounts. As someone that just loves like finding items and doing cool things with them, I'm glad that it almost seems like the mounts are like the followers. I don't know if, you know, there will be also followers or mercenaries, but this kind of, it reminds me of them taking that spot now, where, you know how in D3 we currently, was it like 6 slots or so, gear up a follower and that's it. I mean, it could be the same case that there's just a few slots for these mounts, but apparently they also will do interesting things, right? Because there's like mount speed, I would imagine, and like there was something about dismounting a mount and doing a skill and things like that. So who knows? It should be really. It just sounds like it's going to be interesting, and the fact that you can also kit the mount to like show off as well. They mentioned here like customize it by attaching a trophy. You can signal to other players that you beat some crazy challenge in the zone or something. I like that. I like the ability to brag right there. Don't have to say anything. Just look at my horse. My horse is amazing. Oh boy. There's still more work to be done on mounts though. Navigation and tuning they mentioned. It was too easy to get stuck on some stray pieces for collision or dismounted by a random enemy projectile. So that's kind of interesting. So as you're mounted, it sounds like even when you're just riding through an area, if you get hit by something, you'll be dismounted and forced to fight. And maybe you could try to mount back up and get out. So I guess you still won't be able to just blitz through everything. There might still be more interaction with enemies as you're trying to get through. Okay. We'll probably learn more about that, I hope anyways. I'd like to know more about mounts. Next up was multiplayer. And they mentioned that this was a nice boon of the work from home and all these devs playtesting at the same time, was they were able to test some of the like netcode and being able to utilize servers and such. So they got to do some multiplayer testing. They want to incorporate elements from shared world games without the game ever feeling like it's veering into MMO territory. Massively multiplayer. So it's kind of funny because a lot of us have been saying like D4 seems like it'll have MMO-esque elements. And it seems like they're very keen on not necessarily rebutting that statement, but just being very clear that this is not an MMO. You know, they never even mentioned the word or the phrase when we were at BlizzCon. If you pay attention to like all the panels and stuff. It almost feels like it was a talking point to not mistakenly call this an MMO or anything like that. So it's just a philosophy for them rather than a tech limitation. They find the game stops feeling like Diablo and the world feels less dangerous if you see other players too often or in too high of numbers. So even though you'll be running into other players, it sounds like it's going to be relatively limited. And here was their experience when it came to playtesting with other players being around. Dungeons and key story moments were always private. So just the player and anyone that you're partied with. And once the story moments are complete, towns turned into social hubs, then you would run into a few people. And then when you're on the road, you sometimes run into a player here and there. And if you went to a location where a world event was happening, like fighting a Shava, then you would see a larger congregation of players. Which I guess kind of makes sense, right? So that is kind of the cadence of how you run into players. It sounds like you have some control over it for the most part. And this still kind of rubs me the wrong way, I gotta say. So they mention here, it's worth calling out that while some coordination is helpful during these events, you're never forced to join a party. Solo players can walk in, help complete the event, and claim a reward. To me, that's just not solo though, right? Like, yes, I came in solo, but there's a bunch of people around me all fighting for the same cause. We're not a party, by definition, but, no other way around it. You're getting help from other players. So, I don't know. I just wish there was a way to really captivate the solo experience. Like, there just should be a way that you don't run into other players if you really don't want to. They really don't seem to want to go down that road, but I'm going to keep bringing it up. I don't know if it'll change anything, but there are those of us out there, and I think there are more than they anticipate, that really enjoy just solo experiences. The ability to opt into solo. But whatever, we'll see what happens. They're going to talk about more seamless approaches to multiplayer in the future. And in their test so far, the world is feeling alive and dynamic without compromising the Diablo feel. That's good. We have some tools for helping people party up as well. So it sounds like we'll hear more about multiplayer as well, of course. I'm sure all these things we'll hear more about because this is just scratching the surface. Next up, everybody's favorite topic, items. Items and progression. One of the things that was useful about the 2-day playtest is that it could get some feedback on progression since there was a sense of permanence. So they played this over 2 days. I don't even know if I mentioned that at the top, but that's helpful because on day one, you're like, all right, I'm going to do this for this amount of time and I'm going to try to make this much progress. And then day two, you come back and you're already thinking like, all right, I needed to find like this item to make my build work. I chose these skills. And so there's that idea of the continuity, right? Which gives you a different sort of perspective to look at the game from than if you were just going to play in a very short, bite-sized 20-minute session, right? Like you're here and you're gone. So I get what they're meaning by this, which is cool. Definitely gives them a different approach. So that meant that the gear and the skill choices on day one had an impact on day two, and some people did choose to make ults since there were multiple classes to test. I like this. A friend of mine used to say that Diablo is the game that you keep playing inside your head, and Diablo 4 is no different. That's definitely been the case for me, where I've played at night, and then I have to go to work the next day or something, and I'm just thinking to myself like, oh man, when I get home, I want to try this one build idea, but I need this item. I just don't know if it's gonna work. You're just like theory crafting these things in your head and stuff, and I like that feeling is still here, so it seems. So in addition to the official playtime he had, you could feel the game lingering, thinking about the items that could possibly drop and the talents that you could unlock. There are items he described. So this is what he makes. Lewis, I should use some names, makes reference to David Kim's blog post that we talked about previously on itemization and such. That's also on the channel. I'll probably link that in the video description as well. So all the links go there. And in there, he was talking about new affixes and itemization philosophies, and there's going to be a beefier update on items later in the year. Yes, love items. In the meantime, here are some that dropped. So we can discuss some of these. There's a amulet here. So, how do you guys feel about Crushing Blow? That's something we got to talk about, man, because in D2, it felt like, I don't know, just all the things that you hear about Crushing Blow is that it does more harm than good, it seems. But they seem really keen on bringing it forward, and there's something here, we'll see it on some of the other items, that there's Crushing Blow damage, and then there's like the chance to crushing blow. So it seems like it's almost like a critical strike where you have critical strike chance and critical strike damage. And unless CB, crushing blow, is going to operate differently in this game than it did in D2, maybe that would make it okay. Could be too early to write it off, but if it operates exactly the same, I don't know. Well, just having the damage scale, though, makes it sound like it's different. We'll see, I guess. So they have some other effects here. 4% damage while healthy. Don't know what healthy is, but I'm assuming the tooltips will let you know. Some percent health, I guess. Increase damage while you're at a certain percentage of health. That's cool. Hit effect chance. So here's, they did make mention in the last sort of go around on items that they were adding this whole concept. It's basically an attribute system with angelic power and demonic power and things like that. So we're starting to see some of those pop up on items. And so you can see this one gives you 17. And then in order to unlock this stat here, 15% range damage, you need 66 angelic power. So this gets you part of the way there, but you need other items in your build for the synergy of angelic to unlock some of this stuff. Oh, and this one up here requires demonic power. I totally skipped over that. So it's kind of interesting. There's like a mix of even like different requirements and stuff. And it makes me wonder, like, well, A, how much ability will we have to change our items? So in case we do get, like, say we get this demonic, but we're going to do an angelic build, can we just, like, annul, you know, this stat and then get another angelic one there or something like that? Something that's not tied to a certain thing that we're not stacking. This would be interesting. And then there's this thing I don't think we've seen yet, where 25.4% gem strength in this item. There's a socket, so you can increase the strength of gems. Makes me wonder, though, what sort of effects. I don't know if we've seen gems yet. I don't know if we've seen legendary gems. I don't know if that's coming back from D3. I don't know what actual gems will do, and will this also count for runes, or are they just specifically talk about gems? It's pretty interesting. So a chance to scale those up, though, through affixes. That's pretty cool. And +1 to some skills like we've seen from D2 back in the day. That's pretty cool to see there. Those are some of the rare items. Now we have the legendaries. Legendary items. These seem pretty interesting. Sorry, it's pretty hot in here. So we got cooldown reduction, which I'm not unsurprised it's coming back. So we'll have more cooldown skills and stuff. And that was in the demo anyway, so makes sense. Control duration bonus. I guess that's for us on the enemies. This damage reduction while evading is pretty interesting. So I don't know if I think they had mentioned that there was going to be a roll button or something like that. It's so hard to remember what we've learned and what's just an idea about the game these days. I wonder if that's the evade they're talking about, or if this is actually like evade, like, you know, dodge, stacking a dodge chance or something. So it kind of like backs up if you. Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting, though. And then here, the actual legendary power. Teleport forms a rift in your path that increases your critical strike chance by 39% for 5 seconds. That's actually a lot of crit strike chance. Huh. Interesting. So you basically would teleport maybe like back into the enemies or something, and then you have this huge critical strike chance at that moment for 5 seconds. Intriguing. Got some gloves here. Those are boots. A little ancestral power, damage to healthy enemies. So again, it's like threshold of healthy. Damage to stunned enemies. This is pretty cool. Skills that cost fury will consume all remaining fury and grant a 3.8% damage bonus for each extra point of fury consumed. So it's almost like a mechanic. We see it on like Ancient Spear right now, the boulder toss. So kind of bringing that forward with just, you can do it with any skill now. Anything that ever cost fury, just dump it all out. So that kind of be an interesting glove to throw on. And fury must mean a barb. Legendary mace here. Let's see, 5% crushing blow chance. So see, chance to crushing blow, and the other one had crushing blow damage. So yeah, it's pretty peculiar. There's some more gem strength on this one. Basic skills deal 20% less damage, but generate 6% more fury. So this is really cool. I like skills or legendary items, or powers, I should say, that have like trade-offs. I think that's always really interesting because you're losing something, but hopefully gaining something much stronger. So you have to work around the detriment to get this awesome benefit. So that should be pretty sweet. So that just really means like I don't care what my basic skills do for damage, they're gonna give me nearly all my free bags. So you can almost see these two things going together, right? Ire and Executioner's Gauntlets. And a comment here at this point is good to make a little stop. So this legendary two-handed mace, A, has this bludgeoning in parentheses, and no other like weapons or anything have that. So I don't know what this is telling us. Some kind of like a tag or something, maybe interaction with other interactions. I don't know. So that's useful to note, but also worth noting, 2,603 weapon attack here, which is a pretty big number. And I got clarification that the level requirement text on items doesn't show up if you have already met that minimum level requirement. But Lupgaron mentioned that all the items that are in this blog post are level 20 items. And I think we had last learned that the cap on the game was level 50. So at level 20, you're still 30 away from max. And this is a pretty sizable DPS weapon, right? Or I guess weapon attack amount. I don't know, it just makes me a little worried, because it's like, are we going to have crazy numbers in D4 similar to D3? I guess we'll see. But again, more crushing blow chance here, chance to slow, some stunned enemies. And then critical strikes with storm skills form an aura of lightning around you that shocks nearby enemies for 50% of the damage dealt over 5 seconds. Shocks nearby enemies, 50% of the damage dealt. It doesn't tell you what the damage does though from the aura of lightning. Interesting. So yeah, little storm synergy there. Storm skills. Guessing it's like a druid thing maybe. Legendary gloves, chill grip. Stun chance. Lots of crushing blow damage if you have ancestral power. Angelic power on it though. So it's interesting. I wonder like how much of this is random. That's actually another thing to know too, right? Are the unique items or the legendary items in the game, are they more like fixed? Or are they gonna have like some random stats and then like maybe only the legendary power is fixed, things like that? I'm not sure if we have ever gotten clarification on that. But the power here on this one's when your minor destruction spells critically strike, your next major destruction spell costs no mana and has a 100% chance to critically strike. So that seems like a cool little combo. Get some minor stuff out there. Boom. Crazy major destruction spells. I'm guessing this is a wizard one. Pretty sure that would be the case. So it's almost like a focus restraint in an item, you know? Like use this minor thing here, and it's going to make your next big thing go boom. Real big boom. For free. I like it. Let's see. And then last, a ring, Nature's Balance. Got some crit strike damage, crushing blow damage, melee damage, physical damage is all the damage. And then your storm skill damage increases your earth skill damage by 17% for 5 seconds. And in addition, your earth skills increase the crit strike chance of your storm skills by 16% for 5 seconds. So that's cool, because it's sort of like what we had always hoped, or I mean, maybe not always hoped, but was one of the initial ideas of like, hey, maybe this whole convention of elements, this COE thing will make you want to use multiple elements, but it really didn't, right? You just still stacked one element and went ham on when the alignment happened of elements. But here, this is almost encouraging you to say like, all right, you're going to build a storm and an earth build together, because you have this synergy between when you use one, this helps that. When you use the other, this helps that. So I like that. The items in general seem like they're moving in a good direction here. Definitely still have some questions, some concerns, right? I definitely would love for you guys to chime in the comments. Let us know what you think about some of the items here. And again, we'll be hearing more about them later on too. And last but not least, this is the end here of the blog post. They said that D4 feels fun to play right now. Classes are going down a promising path that they're excited about, taking some cues about what makes the Barb Arsenal system and the Druid shape-shifting feel special, and then looking for ways to apply that innovation to all the classes. Man, I want to know what the other classes are going to be. More to come soon. Playtest was also a good way to put the tech through its paces, since they're playing at home, got different graphics cards and aspect ratios and all sorts of stuff. So that's good. Helped them out with some bugs and such. And then they still have more work. They're not at alpha or beta stage yet, so it's kind of mentioning that. That's where, you know, if we're trying to timeline this, seems like we're still very early on in D3's or D4's timeline. 2022? I don't know. I mean, there's always just throw a date out there. They're not going to discuss typically early milestones publicly during the course of development, but they are saying that it's especially important to continue to share since there will be no BlizzCon. Feels bad, man. And this was an important milestone for the team as they felt corroborated that they have the key ingredients for D4, a great D4. And they're going to still ask for our feedback and iterate as they drive to completion. Hope you enjoyed. Sound off. And they're going to ask us for more of our topics. What else do you guys want to hear about? They did mention here that some of the things they're thinking about next are talent trees. They're going to talk more about those. That'll be cool to see. They also mentioned that items are popular and also music. So maybe we'll have some updates on those too. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Hope you enjoyed this review. I know it's a little long, but there was some stuff to get hyped about. I'm pretty excited about the continued progression on D4. I want to know more. I just want to play the game. But soon, definitely Blizzard TM soon. I don't even know. Yeah, so again, all links that are useful in the video description. Hop to the comments, let me know what you think. Definitely want to hear from all y'all on the D4 and your thoughts. And until next time, adios for now. Thank you for watching the video. Subscribe.